Hello everyone, Edain here, and welcome back to the Edain mod. Today we're going to be over-explaining Erebor. Now, my original plan was to do an over-explain and a skirmish each week for the Dwarves, every single Dwarf faction. However, I forgot I already did Erebor. So, in the end, we'll be doing Erebor, the skirmish, but then we'll do a different over-explained on that week. Or just another skirmish, depends on how I feel on the week. Anyway, we are here with Erebor. Probably the easiest of the three dwarf factions. And used to be my least favourite. But then, that all changed a few patches back with the Ring Hero. Which I will actually be going over in this video very briefly. Just because of how important he is. So, overall, the Dwarves of Erebor are considered the aggressive version of the dwarf factions. There's Erebor, which is aggression. There's Iron Hills, which is all defense. And then there's Erebor, which is more about speed and hero utility. That's the like the main building blocks on each faction. And each unit has something different. Well, each dwarf unit anyway. There are some things that are very much the same for all of them, because they can't make everything so unique it's impossible to get anywhere. But anyway, let's get into the main mechanics of the Dwarves of Erebor. All of their basic units are able to do something that is either good against heavy armor or something that's good against something that doesn't have heavy armor. So, in the case of our Erebor Guardians, their abilities are to weaken the armor on things that they damage. The Raven's Beaks are all about doing more damage to structures and infantry when, you know, they normally shouldn't be. Arkenguard can just destroy anything because they get to ignore heavy armor. And then there's the Axe Throwers that, one, do slash damage, so they're already doing the same amount of damage as an Erebor warrior would in melee. But then they can do even more damage against things that don't have heavy armor. So we've got a nice mix of pretty much everything for damage, which is definitely the biggest thing about Erebor. Again, is either just doing massive amounts of damage or just being strong enough to beat everything in one hit, which leads to basically the strengths and weaknesses of the faction. There's not really much else to say about mechanics, because the main mechanic is the fact that there's three dwarf factions and this one is meant to be more aggressively inclined. So, the strengths and weaknesses of the dwarves, then, well, the dwarves of Erebor in particular, as I've already said, their strength is the fact that they can rip apart any unit with minimal ease. All they need to do is just slap them a few times and they're dead. Even heroes struggle against some of the dwarves of Erebor's just might in general is insane. And again, Axe Throwers being a different damage type to most other ranged units makes it so that they can be effective in the very beginning of the game. Obviously, with being weaker to cavalry, you don't want them against a faction that can make very cheap cavalry like Warg Riders of Isengard. Don't want to go against... so yeah, Warg Riders of Isengard, the Wargs of Gundabad, or the Rohirrim of Rohan. But yeah, against most factions, these Axe Throwers are better. And you've also just got a nice rounded roster with Erebor. You don't feel like you're not doing enough damage. You're just too tanky with Iron Hills, or you're just not too weak, not able to really do much, or you have to do so much micro to make it feel like you're doing enough with Erebor. Obviously, depending on how you play, you can go through these problems and make them not problems. But in this case, we don't really have any real weaknesses with Erebor, other than the fact that your one standard pike unit for the dwarves is a unit that specifically has an ability to do more damage against things that they don't normally deal damage to, like infantry and structures. Because, you know, in their ability tooltip, it literally says, for 30 seconds, deal increased damage against infantry and structures, but reduce damage against cavalry and monsters. I haven't tested if that is specifically works against trample damage if the revenge damage is still the same. But I'm assuming it is, since trample damage isn't something you can easily change, I'm assuming. Again, not knowing much about coding. But yeah, it pretty much changes their damage type to a much better damage type for a short time. But then it leaves you to be weak against things you're normally meant to be good against. And obviously, these having slash damage instead of pierce damage makes those axe throwers terrible against monsters. Things like trolls, ents, Mumakil, they do less damage overall because the damage types don't have any real workaround against them. Which is why you have Dale with some Dale archers with fire arrows. Because fire arrows, ice arrows, yeah, those types of damage types are very good against single target entities, especially with just simple pierce damage. Can kill single entities really easily that aren't heroes. Mumakil get flattened by anything that's fire-based. Trolls without armor are so weak against archers, I feel like it's not even funny how much you have to spend on them just to watch them get flattened by either pikemen or archers. But that's what I'm saying. Your base dwarf units with Erebor do not deal very well with monsters. So against a faction like Mordor or Misty Mountains, try going for a different sub-faction. They are just generally better. But if your opponent doesn't really use cavalry very well, doesn't use monsters very well, or is an AI, then you can get away with just playing Erebor anytime, no real weakness to it. But if you're going against a player that uses it a lot, you can struggle. You can definitely struggle. And before we go on to anything else, I firstly want to talk about the glitch I'm going to be talking about in all these videos of the Dwarves. So you might notice I have a Hall of the King's Men in a place that I really shouldn't. Just right in front of my base. And if I click on here, on our Dwarven build plot requirement line of defense, we have Hall of Warriors or Forge Works. Now, this is an exploitable bug because, as you can see, I can just build whatever I want on every other build plot anyway. Where these build plots, normally you can only build a tower, hearth, or heroic statue. Meaning you could go 7 mine shafts, for example, or 6 mine shafts and a dwarf forge, and then go for your Hall of Warriors and or Forge Works just at the front in these 2 slots, and you basically just got 2 extra build plots, putting you on par with Angmar and Gondor, which is definitely not something you should have with this faction. It makes you stupidly strong. Now, I need to test one thing. The line of defense normally only becomes unlockable when you buy the line of defense power from the Dwarven Stonemason. So, it has now changed to the Hearth and the Battle Tower. It no longer seems to offer the heroic statue. I think, again, this is part of the bug. But yeah, without the line of defense, you can build a barracks or a forge works in your those 2 build plots on a camp or castle start. If it's a camp start, that is even more egregiously abusive, because my god, the amount of stuff you can get away with doing that, even on outposts, you can do it. As you can see here, I've built this. This is basically on camp level for an outpost. You can see where I'm going with this, right? How this is actually just a big bug. And I hope the Edain team fixes this. And this is not what they actually have planned for the Dwarves. They're strong enough already. They don't need more of that. Oh, anyway. That's my talk on that for this video. I'll be, again, talking about it in every other video just to nail down the point that I hope this gets fixed soon. I hope it is just a bug. And I hope people that are using this are only using it against AI and not against players. Because if you're using this against players, you are going to get flamed by a lot of people. Because this is definitely an exploitable bug you really shouldn't be using. If your opponents don't even know that this is a bug and you're using it, I pray they don't watch my videos. Because, yes, this is a bug. This is not intended content as far as I am aware. Anyway, back to the actual content I am wanting to go over. Next up are our units, as I've already talked about before. We have Guardians, Phalanx, Arkenguard for our elites, and Axe Throwers for our ranged units for the Dwarves. And the Dwarves of Erebor Guardians can get the War Masks, which just even further weakens the armor of enemies nearby. So you get the extra 15% on units and buildings here. Whatever that amount is, it doesn't actually tell you how much, but I'm going to guess another 15%. So that's 30% reduction in armor, meaning 30% more damage going through on already stupid levels of damage for our Guardians. And the Phalanx, I've already said, probably the worst of the three Spearman units for the Dwarves. Still has its uses in different contexts, with the pole arm hammer strikes. Just using the bonk instead of the stick, the spiky part, to make it sound silly. They've got the axe throwers, probably probably in my opinion the strongest and most powerful of the three dwarf ranged units because again of slash damage. They don't have a formation like with the archers of Erebor, like I've talked about already, that gives them extra range. But you don't need extra range as the axe throwers. You want to be keeping them in the clump, keep them protected, so they just don't die to trample damage. And obviously, again, they have the cutting axes for 30 seconds, do more damage against things without heavy armor. So kind of similar to the Pinafgillan swordsman of Gondor. And then the Arkenguard, the Giga Chads themselves, already over 1,000 health per entity, and just does more damage for 15 seconds and ignoring heavy armor and can't be knocked down or trampled for 15 seconds. Dwarven War Mastery. Amazing ability. Definitely my favourite out of all three, again, of the dwarf units for the elite tier. And the heroic tier, you can see we still have the veterans of Khazad-dûm. Get the choice of, again, an axe for just more damage overall. You get a hammer to do more damage to buildings. The Morning Stars to do more damage to armored units, to have Uruk damage, is what it is classified as in the coding. And then you've got swords to just do more damage to heroes in general. I think it gives you the hero damage tag. Don't quote me on that. And then you get the choice of either an extra axe for, I think it's just 50 flat damage, and then whatever buffs you get, that's also applied, or a shield to get heavy armor trait. Because you don't actually start off with a heavy armor trait on the Khazad-dûm vets, which makes them one of the, without it, one of the weakest heroic units in the game. Until you get them fully leveled up, and then they have abilities like become immune to knockback and trampling and slow down enemy cavalry, but move slower in the duration, and just insane amounts of extra damage and reduction of armor with Death Wish. Or you can do what I always do, just get the one, process the mithril, and then give all your heroes the mithril mail for 500 resources. Just give them insane amounts of health and just watch them never die. And before we go to Dale, we might as well talk quickly about the battle wagons. For Erebor, we have the Phalanx on our sides instead of Erebor, which has the archers. These guys just have more offensive power, making it so every hit and every trample hit is just more damaging. We've also got the oil barrel, we all know, we all love it. Toss in the barrel. Then we get the choice of the wheel blades, which is Erebor's unique upgrade, which means that it just becomes even more powerful than the trample, really, because you're just wheeling through more things. And also, whenever you get any three of those upgrades, you just get a level up. So you can see those extra wheel spikes. You can get the banner carrier to give damage and armor to all nearby allies if you want to have a more support aggression tactic. Or if you want a more support healing tactic when out of combat, you can get the ale keg to make it so all your nearby dwarves are being healed up in the middle of the fight, which is really good. Next up, we have our Demolisher. You know it, you love it. It's the same no matter which faction you play. Same with the Earthshaker, which used to be, back in the earlier versions of Edain version 4, used to be only accessible for Erebor. But then they made it universal for all three dwarf factions. And then we have the Erebor Catapult, which is the traditional catapult. The two shots, they wind up and shoot out from the sides, unlike Erebor one shot over the head. Kind of looks like the Earth Hammer. But then, it shoots actual stone instead of the shocking the ground. And of course, I can't forget about the miners. I'm not going to go over the whole kerfuffle of running with them last time. You see that aura, that orange aura? If there's an enemy building inside that aura, you can dig a tunnel. You make a little building. You then damage the building quite heavily over time that you're digging the tunnel into, just shaking the foundations, making it impossible for the buildings to remain intact, just breaking them bit by bit. But of course, the building itself that the miner is stuck in can be destroyed, and then the miner itself is very weak, so it is not hard to destroy it, which makes it a very unique but fringe siege unit, considering you already have 3 other siege units in your faction. You have more siege units than any other faction in the game, barring Mordor and Isengard, technically. But I'm not including that, because technically they don't, because siege towers and siege ladders are only useful on fortress maps, which are only half of the maps, not all the maps. And lastly, we come to Dale. The Men of Dale probably have my favourite ability for the extra units of the Dwarves. They have the March formation. Increase their movement speed by 30%. Look at that speed. Look at them dash in. That is amazing. Dwarf units that are actually faster than ordinary dwarves. That's the speed of the Ered Luin, well, almost the speed of the Ered Luin dwarves, with their only able to use for a small time ability, but on a formation. But obviously, it also reduces your damage and armor, so use it sparingly. And then the men of the swordsmen of Dale have the same ability, the March formation, and then the supposedly elite Dale bowmen, although they have 15 entities in their unit, and cost 600 resources, have the Black Arrow ability, which means they can target something, reducing the range of archers by 50%, but deals double damage against monsters. So you can pretty much one-shot most monsters with 1 or 2 volleys of Black Arrows, if you're lucky. I personally don't use these units at all, because Dale itself is much better when you focus it on being an economic powerhouse. And we'll go over all of Dale's upgrades in a moment, because that is all of the units. Next, we must go to the heroes, and then we'll talk about the buildings. So firstly, we have Nori, who it has a special passive in that he just levels up over time. You don't need to do anything with him. You can have him sit in the base the entire game, spend that 150 resources, and then he will just eventually become level 10 after every minute, I believe. Yeah, he levels up once per minute and gains a mithril shirt at level 10, increases armor by 30%. At level 1, he has the ability Shady Fellow. For 30 seconds, Nori moves faster and reveals the area he wanders through for 20 seconds. The revealed regions unveil hidden units, so he just leaves a imaginary tracking device wherever he's going, wherever he's coming from. He will leave a nice little trail for a bit, so you can potentially spy on a Smeagol. Then you can summon Dori, your brother, who gets stronger the more leveled up Nori is. At level 3, when you first get Dori, he's just a extra hero that does a little bit of damage. At level 5, he has more damage. At level 7, he has more damage, while Nori is on the increases Nori's damage even while he's on the battlefield. And at level 10, Dori's attacks hit multiple things and knock them on the ground. So he becomes a mini Boromir. Not for a very long time, mind you. Not for a long time. But he's there for a fun time, not a long time. And then we have the throwing knife, similar to Aragorn's throwing knife. Just not as powerful because it's a scout hero, not a hero killer. And then he has the ambush ability. A very, very short, but pun intended, teleport with a few... You probably didn't see those knives. Let me just reset that power and show you again. Pay attention. You see those knives? Those knives were just shooting out, similar to Drauglin's ability from Angmar, where he shoots out the Razor Crescents. But it's a mini teleport into a dangerous situation. You can use it as a self-sacrifice ability to do a lot of damage in an area to a bunch of weak foes, like, say, for example, Mordor Orcs. If you were fighting against a spam faction, that's a good ability to use. And then if Nori dies, 500 resources, get him back, do it again. Honestly, probably the best thing you can do with him. And then add in Dory as well, just have that extra damage. I do believe the damage will stack, so ambush will do more damage that way. But don't quote me on that, I don't 100% know. Next up is Gloin, who has an ability Aggressive Sally. Gloin opens a sally gate at target building, which works as an exit to the mineshaft system. Which, you can see he just targets a building. I'm going to have to wait for him to move there, because I actually want to show this off. It is quite important to understand exactly how this looks. So, spawn a little building, and then you can shoot your units out from the mineshaft. Which is a very fun way of surprising your enemy. But you have to do it quickly, because you can probably only get 1 or 2 rounds of dwarves out from there. But, you know, it's a cool little thing. You want a little strike team to assault an enemy building from nowhere. Because Glowing technically is a very slow hero and probably shouldn't be doing hit-and-run tactics, being a slow dwarf, unless you can build a mineshaft out of the land you just took. But it's a cool little thing you can do. Or you can use it when you're assaulting the enemy with most of your army. If you're recruiting some more units from your base, but you have to go all across the map, just dunk them in the mineshaft, and then they'll be right there, which is really cool. Next up ability is Siege Master of Erebor. Grants nearby siege units bonus damage and armor against, and nearby infantry immunity against structure damage. Moreover, nearby machines will continuously be repaired. So that's a cool little ability to make it so your your demolishers in melee range that are just deploying and just trying to destroy this one big building can now destroy that one big building and do it more safely, because it will have more damage and armor, but also just heal over time. Then we have the Shake Foundation, which is the same ability that he's had since BFME 2. You target a building, it damages it, and if there's a gate, it must open. And then finally, Shatter Hammer. Nice big AoE, nice big rewarding AoE effect, which is mostly light damage to units and throws them back, but also heavy damage to structures. Obviously, the closer they are to the actual shatter, you know, the actual animation and Glowing himself, they will sustain more damage, similar to many other abilities in the Battle for Middle-earth in general. And then you can purchase something from Mail. Then we have our hero killer, Thorin Stonehelm. Starts with Iron Will. Thorin becomes stronger the lower his health points are. At 50%, he deals 100 extra damage. And at 25% life points, he does an extra bunch of damage and is resistant to knockback. And you can see, compared to the Iron Hills version, this version of Edain of Thorin looks different. We'll go over that when we actually go over the Iron Hills Overexplained. But yeah, this version of Thorin wields a dagger, a small like crysknife, and a axe as well. And he then gets the ability at level 3. Blood Rage for 30 seconds, deals double damage but has less armor. Quite easy to notice when he's using it. Then he can use Battle Roar. For 20 seconds, he gains bonus speed, and nearby enemy heroes sustain more damage from hero attacks, not just from his attack, but other heroes as well. And then Revenge can be activated only while in Blood Rage, which is the first one. Thorin attacks nearby enemy heroes with nearby enemies even with a mighty blow, causing normal damage. For every hit enemy, Thorin is healed for 50% of the damage dealt. Enemy heroes, monsters, and machines suffer 3 times as much damage. So, double damage. That's the only way you can use this if you're dealing double damage. If you're low on health, say for example 25% HP, which is let's say 2,000 health left, you do currently 537. Add 200 to that, so that's 737 damage. Add on the bonus damage enemies take by 50%. You are dealing with this ability, with Blood Rage active, roughly 1,500 damage, plus 50% of that. You're doing 2,000, near 2,500 damage in one hit, and then triple that. You're basically killing he's doing his own health in damage if he is in the 25% health threshold. And then for half of that, he is healed. So he is healing himself up to full from near death. Incredible ability. And the fact it says that every hit enemy shows that it is an AoE ability. This makes Thorin Stonehelm have some of the biggest burst damage in the entire game. Just out of every hero in the game, one of the highest burst damage potentials. And then we come to Gimli, who also has a very high burst potential. Starting with an axe throw, you know it, you love it. It's been in the game since BFME 1. He chucks an axe. It doesn't say I'll smite it from afar when you first click it anymore, though, which is a shame. Then gets his leap attack. Everyone remembers this one. There's one dwarf gets in Moria, who still draws breath. And then he gets Slayer, 40% more damage, increased movement speed, and his attacks knock back multiple enemies for a short duration. And then the ability that came in with Edain is Stubbornness. The stubbornness of the dwarves is unsurpassed. Gimli is a special case in stubbornness, however, and can taunt his foes into madness, causing them to only target him and increase the fury of their attacks. This gives them fearlessness and damage at the cost of armor. So, notice how this is not saying Gimli gets this. This is all nearby enemies are not running away. They're doing more damage, but they have way less armor now. So all those other units you currently have, they're going to do a lot of damage. Now the last part, the part in the middle where it says can only target him, I don't think that is actually part of it. Do not quote me on that. I do not know. I've never had the privilege to test it. But I'm fairly certain that is not how that works. And then again, you can get Mithril Mail like with all the other dwarf heroes. Now, let's get to King Edain Ironfoot II. Well, King Edain II Ironfoot. First ability, a passive, the Burst of Rage. When attacking an enemy unit or hero, Edain grants bonus damage to nearby allied units and makes them fearless for 15 seconds. This can only be triggered once every 25 seconds. So, get Edain into the fight after the fight's already begun, and then you'll get that damage boost for a nice long time. Pray the fight is over by that time, because otherwise you're going to realise you're not doing as much damage. But yeah, still really good the fact it could just doubles most... Well, yeah, it will naturally double all your damage in the area around Edain for a short time. Then he has the charge command. Place a banner near an enemy. I believe it does specify it. Yeah, near to target enemy units. Allied units and heroes move faster the closer they get to the banner. So, you see an enemy just sat in front of a gate, for example. You have Edain place that banner about a screen away. Your entire army now just gets faster the sooner you get to that area. Which can actually be useful, especially if they're trying to close the gates just in time. If you just keep clicking to get close to that unit and that banner, you might actually scare them and get in. Next up we have the Mount and Dismount at level 6. Requires Burst of Rage to be active. But as long as it is active, so for up to 15 seconds, Edain can be riding his boar. Unfortunately, because he's a bit old, and his boar's a bit old by now. If it's the same boar that he used in the Hobbit movie, which technically died, but he just gets... while mounted, triggers a new Burst of Rage with every attack against enemy units or heroes without needing to recharge. So that means that 15-second Burst of Rage can be constantly triggering. He can be constantly on his boar, leading the charge. He leads by example. He is a king that does not sit behind and just gives leadership buffs like, say, for example, Theoden. He is who can anyway. He is the one that always wants to be in the front, doing massive damage so your other troops can do even more damage. And then finally we have the Royal Battle Wagons. Summon 5 upgraded battle wagons to target area, 1 for every dwarf realm, and 1 with banner and beer barrel respectively. So we can show off all 5 battle wagons here. So we've got our Erebor battle wagon with the wheel upgrade. We've got the keg upgrade. We've got the banners. We've got the Iron Hills battle wagon, which has the shield bearers, increases the armor, and also the trophies, which reduces nearby damage of all enemies, and that can also be stacked with other battle wagons. And then obviously we've already talked about the battle wagon of the Erebor, which has the little crossbow, little bolt thrower, which is really cool and is reminiscent of the bolt thrower from the Hobbit movie. It's another nice nod to the movies there, and also Mithril Mail. Lastly, among our heroes that isn't the ring hero, we'll talk about him very soon, we have King Brand. King of Dale. If armed with a bow, King Brand will buff Dale Bowman with increased damage, or armed with a shield and sword, he boosts his soldiers with more attack damage. And his second ability at level 2 is, obviously, as you see here, equip the sword. You can see his leadership is now only affecting Dale's swordsman and pikeman. Swaps back to his bow, and now it's only affecting the bowman. Then he gets his falcon. Summons falcon to scout the enemy territory. Just a cute little falcon. It's a shame it can't falcon punch thing. Which, yes, by the way, falcons do curl up their talons in a fist and punch things at incredible speeds. And it makes sense. This is a very, well, it should be faster technically, but I'll accept the speed. I'm trying to make it too accurate. Then he has the ability Determination. For 30 seconds, the bonus of King of Dale is increased to 50% damage and affects Brand 2. So you know that it just doubles the damage, and then Brand also gets that extra damage. And then the Inherited Black Arrow. This ability does not have a cooldown timer, and if used repeatedly, does the same damage as a normal attack. However, the longer the ability is left unused, the more damage it will do. If the ability is not used for 240 seconds, the attack will deal 200% normal damage, which means it's doing basically triple damage if you don't count into the fact that Determination would make that stupid. But you can get a total of 250% bonus damage on a basic attack, if you want to put it that way, which for Brand at the moment is 302. So that would be... oh god, my math is terrible. 250% of that is 600, 900. It's over 1,000 damage in one shot, which can kill most units in the game. Again, in one shot. Could technically kill an Arkenguard. I actually want to test it out now.
Let's go.
So let's test it out. That is if my numbers are correct here. Obviously, damage, not damage multipliers, armor types will change how this works. But let's find out. If reverse convert, the Arkenguard, if the Inherited Black Arrow can one-shot an Arkenguard.
Rally together.
Game.
To your death, beast. Have an arrow ready.
You stay back. We're not a part of this. It did not. You see the one there that took a lot of damage? Yeah, that's the one that it hit.
Blood of our ancestors. To your death, beast.
And you can see if we shoot it again. Shoot it again.
Beast.
No, we're doing more damage with the Inherited Black Arrow at base than we were. I don't know. That doesn't feel right. Let me double check some things. So I talked to the one on the far left. It had lost about half its health. I think this might have bugged out because the first shot actually happened, but it didn't happen. Oh, I'm annoyed at that. Well, we'll never know because they're dead now. Oh, where was I? Oh yeah, and he also obviously can't get Mithril Mail because he's not a dwarf. Or Bilbo. Because you've always got to remember that little dude. So that is all our heroes except for the ring hero. Durin, the 7th, the final king of the dwarf people. His first ability, Durin the Deathless, forefather of the dwarves. Durin escapes death for a long time even if his health points are spent, so similar to Boromir. As the greatest of the legendary 7 forefathers of the dwarves, Durin is known to all dwarves and he is a source of inspiration. Dwarven heroes in the area gain extra armor, and Durin, in awe of the temptation of the ring, instead of falling for it, he learns to control it on his own. On his way, no ally can support him, and he won't gain any shit experience from nearby allies, but he will get experience from King's Favor. Where was I? Next ability, Master of Stone. makes it so all allied buildings in a radius are strengthened, enemy units and enemy buildings are weakened. You can see, if you just use this right now, you see our building got a nice little glow up. Use on an enemy building, it turns red. Then we have the ability, the Expedition of Khazad-dûm, which is, if you've seen my before the New Year video on why I think Durin is one of the best ring heroes in the game, I'm not going to read over all of this. Basically, get up to level 5, take him over to King Dain. After the blue sparks have stopped happening, you can then send a dwarf unit with him to Khazad-dûm, reclaim it. He comes back with a brand new set of abilities. Or his abilities become upgraded. Sorry. And he is now able to make buildings on his own. He then has the Word of the Forefathers. Enemy units in a radius become afraid, while ally units are healed and gain increased stats. And then finally, the Fire of Durin's Forge. Durin the Immortal sentences enemies to burn in the fires of Orlay's Forge. Which, if you've played with Foreign or you've seen the other video, yeah, that's what it does. It burns. As I said, it takes about 30 seconds of just talking with Dain. After that time is over, send him over to a dwarf unit, and he will skedaddle with those dwarves. And then he will eventually also disappear with them. And while he's away, I'm going to talk about all the buildings quickly. So we have a Hall of Warriors. We already know what this does. Guardians, Phalanx, Ranged Unit, Elite Unit, Banner Carriers, Guardian Specific Upgrade, Miners. Same as every other dwarf faction. Forge works exactly the same. Obviously, the Battle Wagon upgrade gives you the Erebor Battle Wagon upgrade for the wheels. You've got your resource building of the Dwarf Stonemason, which gives you your upgrades of improving your battle towers, the oil vents on the front of your base, and the before mentioned lines of defense, which, as you can see, are currently bugged, but hopefully will be fixed soon. And Durin's back. He comes back with a unit of Khazad-dûm vets, if you didn't know. He's now got the ability Buildmanship of Khazad-dûm, which just gives even more stats. He's then got the Word of Silence. Enemy units within a wide area become afraid, while allies are healed, and enemy buildings within a wide area cannot be used for 30 seconds. And then finally, he's got the Fires of Orlay's Forge. Once again, does the exact same thing. Just looks like it's even more explosive than the last one, because it might be. And obviously, the Khazad-dûm vets are the same. And as I said, we make new buildings. We have the Mithril Workshop, which we can build anywhere on the map. Same with the Durin statue. Can build anywhere. And then the Durin's Barracks, which allows you to recruit all of the dwarves of all three races. Of all three factions, even. Erebor, Iron Hills, and Ered Luin. We'll just get all those built while I'm talking about the other buildings. The Mine Shaft can be where you send your units to go into the mine network, and as we've spoken already, you can get out of that mine network by using another mine shaft, or, thanks to Glowing, the Aggressive Sally, or the Power Undermine, which I'm not going to go over the powers very much because we've already talked about all of them. But we can see here we have access to Ered Luin dwarves, Erebor dwarves, and Iron Hills dwarves. We'll only go over Iron Hills dwarves later. Then we have the Durin statue, does the exact same thing as your base heroic statue. It just looks cooler and is a reminder of what the statue used to look like back when the ring hero for all the dwarf factions was Durin the Deathless himself. You would carry the ring and take it to a statue, and then Durin would pop out during the first. And you can see there, more damage and armor, and after you leave the area, you lose that. And then let's get that Mithril Workshop built up as well, so I can show you what building comes out from that. We have the Dwarven Forge, which obviously gives you all of our upgrades. The Dwarf Workers Tools gives you upgrades to your military buildings as well, getting to tier 2 and then tier 3 respectively. Settlers Tools, or your outposts. Heavy Armor, Forge Blades, Fire Arrows for your men units. Elite Equipment for your elite troops. Siege Plans for the Earth Hammer and Flaming Shots, and the Erebor Catapult. And then finally, obviously, the Procession of Mithril. Once you get the Khazad-dûm vets into the forge, you can see them working on the steel in there. They take over the old miners.
Before you set out, please
Then we
accept a
have
token
with
of our gratitude.
Durin the ore mining facility, and you can. Sorry, no, not ore. You can the expedition workshop, which builds the ore mining facility. The mine provides more resources as it reaches deeper into the earth. Gives access to the tunnel network.
Built with dwarven skill.
So if you just want to destroy the landscape, make a bunch of things into the mines. Apparently these can go into the mine network. I might be wrong on that.
We're done with this one.
Gives access to the tunnel network. Let me test that, because I've never actually tested that.
Get in now.
That it actually goes into the mine network. It would make sense, because, you know, it's going into the deep, dark places. But it's not showing you can put units in, is what I'm thinking.
Day is ours.
Yeah, so unless you can build it out, but you can also, if you don't have a Khazad vet unit in a forge, all you need to do is build this mithril processor, and it will just give you mithril anyway, because you're digging deep into the earth and finding. Oh yeah, there you go. That's proven it. You can actually evacuate units out from those mines as a form of a mine shaft. Although you can't seem to get them to do anything afterwards.
Come on, dwarves.
Yeah, they're just stuck there. So maybe don't do that. Maybe don't.
Your axes this
Yeah, pretty cool, as you would expect. But yeah, the fact all this is part of a ring hero is amazing. Definitely, in my opinion, the second best ring hero in the game, right behind Sauron. Right behind, because of how well this hero's been done. What else is there to talk about? The battle towers, the same in every faction. You can upgrade, instead of having 2 shots, you can upgrade it with forged blades. Got the half, which gives you your healing, and the heroic statue is the same as the Durin statue. Just bonus damage and armor while in the aura, and then when you go out the aura, you hold it for a little bit longer. The dwarves have, as I've already mentioned before in the previous Overexplain with Erebor, the Raven Lair as a bonus building for your defenses around your fortresses, which gives a bonus vision range and attack range to all dwarf units in the vicinity. You get your battle towers, you get the catapults, and you get the postern gates. That has not changed and will not change for any of the dwarf factions. You just put them anywhere. So I believe that leaves us, yep, just with firstly the lumber mills, which, yes, they brought back the discounts. I love they brought the discounts back, making it so just the cost of machines and structures by up to 30% is so good. And mine shafts reduce the cost of upgrades by up to 30%. You also get the pony camps. I call it anyway, the pony camps. The travel camp, where you eventually get some of these pack horses. You merge them with a elite unit, so in this case an Arkenguard. And then after a bit of time, you get a unit of Khazad veterans. Now, I'm going to talk about this. I think I forgot to talk about it last time. Back when the dwarves first came out, this was a gambling system, because you could only put them with Erebor, well, with any of the faction's guardians, and there was a chance they did not return. So there was a chance you didn't get your heroic unit, but they changed that to make it so you have to use your elite units to have a guaranteed return. Because obviously, having a heroic unit by just turning a 200 resource unit you start with and a bunch of ponies, that was ridiculous. It was either really strong or really weak, because again, it was all a gamble. But I'm glad they changed it so it was a guaranteed. You always get them after you sent an elite unit, which requires elite equipment, which requires the forge to make, which is a lot of economic investment. It is worth it. You then get your elite, your then heroic units from that, which you can then process mithril for your heroes, or you can make them into battle-hardened veterans that can just take out most enemies in a few good hits. So that is all our main buildings. Our outpost, as I've shown already, does have 2 expansions. Used to have 3. They changed it with when they added this little plot around each outpost, which I do appreciate. The dwarves were already really strong, and their outposts that were like this were their best outposts. I would never make the other outposts, but since they've updated them for Lake Town and Dale, I have always made these 2 outposts because, oh, they're amazing. So, we've talked about Lake Town before. We talked about Dale before, actually, in separate videos, again, before the new year. But let's not talk about the Dale Marketplace and every single one of its building upgrades. So, over time, this building will just level up. Every level up, you can then buy a new building. It starts off by getting this extra little housing area here just early on. And then some of these other buildings are things I built to get the Dale troops. So this is the militia house, where we get our swordsmen and pikemen. And then there's the palace, which is this big building here, which is where we get our Dale bowmen. Oh yeah, and we get Brand from the base militia house, not from the palace. Let me make that clear. So, other things you can get from the beginning are the warehouses. You can also get the toy market or the watchtower. Those are your choices. Those are your 4 choices to start with. You can't get the palace until you get the militia house. And oh yeah, you eventually will get the I'm not sure what you'll call this. The trumpets are constructed for free, but we don't really know what the trumpets do right now because we've not got everything upgraded. So let's start with the warehouses. Constructs warehouses that generates resources. Unlocks the Traders of Dale ability, which is this ability here, which is amazing. I love this power. And then allows you to then make the Dwarven Craftsman afterward. So let's just talk about what the warehouses do. So you can see there's a lot of little buildings that come out from the warehouses. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little buildings that popped up. So let's start with what this power does. You target a settlement, and then a trader will go out from the Dale marketplace in the center, and it will build a road from your well, you can see it'll leave track marks to start with as it makes its way to the settlement in question. Once it's made its way there, it will then return to the marketplace, and it will now create a road, which currently doesn't do anything really. Let me actually talk about the whole thing. It's the city of Dale was a prosperous trade hub. Its markets known far and wide and a destination for many. Sends a trader to a settlement to establish a trade route. If the settlement is reached, it will frequently send trade caravans towards Dale, creating roads on their path and generating money upon their arrival in Dale. Selects a lumber mill, mineshaft, or trading camp. As you can see, the road has been established. But then you can get the Dwarven Craftsman, which is a workshop for skilled Dwarven Smiths, increases the health of the building, because every building here does increase the health of the Dale Marketplace, because it is technically one building. But with the Dwarven Craftsman, you can then construct the roads constructed even by the traders will now provide bonus speed for allied units. So now, if I was to move a troop up towards that road, they will, as you can see, move a lot faster. You get the tradesman building. We're getting a lot of lag all of a sudden. Let me try and... You can see the smoke coming out from there. That's where the trader is. And you can see the dwarven runes on top of the heads of our men of Dale. That just shows they have a bonus movement speed, and now they have ridiculous speed. This is near cavalry speed. This is battle wagon speed. Oh, that's ridiculous. I love it. Anyway, eventually a trader will pop up again, go out, go to the mineshaft, come back in, and you can do this to as many buildings as you want. However, I will note, if you build another Dale Marketplace, some roads might cancel each other out if you try to build roads from both outposts to different settlements. I don't have the full information about how that works. I would recommend asking the Edain team directly about what causes it. That's just all I know about it. Next up, we have the toy market. Generate more resources. Again, more health for the building. And increase the resources gained from caravans returning to Dale. So you want this after you've at least built the warehouses. So there's a little toy market with a nice little tree in the back. Very nice looking building. Then we have the watchtower, which it does what it says on the tin. It's a giant bloody watchtower which shoots at anything that comes nearby. Look at all those little walls, the windows. Look at all the windows that enemies are going to get shot from. And you can see the door leading right up to there, and all those towers are where archers will be shooting from. You'll normally see them shooting from the very top in the actual animations. Next up, you can build the fountain. Constructs a fountain. Units in area are healed and regenerate fallen soldiers. So now you've even got even more value from just being nearby this base by having a well. And then the last building upgrade you can get, which requires the palace, is the wind lance. Powerful artillery defense. That's right. This base has a ballista, the wind lance. However, it cannot be used to target flying creatures. It can only target things on the ground, sadly, because it is classified as a siege unit. So you can see, it hits the ground. It cannot be used to kill dragons, sadly. We've not got Girion here manning the wind lance. It is made to be a ballista unit, not a sky killing unit. That is what's in the tower. And then once we get to level 10 and all this has been done, we also get trumpets, which we technically have already had, but now we actually get to talk about what they do, because we've got everything. So, the clear sound of trumpets can be heard far and wide, encouraging all friends of Dale allies in the vicinity to gain more damage and armor. It's a heroic statue effect. It's amazing. And now we can build another road. While we move on to the last thing, before we get to the end, which are the structures. No, not the structures. My brain had a fart. I had a brain fart. We talk about the powers very quickly because we've already talked about them technically in Erebor, and they haven't changed. They don't change with the dwarf factions. We've got Kark's Ravens. So choose a building. You get to spy on that building with your ravens and give it extra armor and weaken your enemies. Rallying Call. You get to place a horn down to boost your troops. Lone Tower. You make a tower. Undermine. You make a access to the mine network. Weapon Art of the Dwarves. Passive that just gives all your units more damage and more armor if you have given them their upgrades. If you've eaten your meat, you get your pudding. Is basically what that means. You get the runes of inviolability, inspiration, power, and productivity. You get protection on a building, heroic sacred effect on a building, but doubled up, I guess. Restoration on a building, and better recruitment or resource generation on a building. You get Gandalf the Grey, who has his Wizard Blast, Pine Cones for burning damage, single target effects with a mini AoE, so kind of like the Pitch Throws of Rohan. And then it gets the Dragon Fire, which does big AoE damage in an area, can kill most things, even with heavy armor. Then we get Beorn, who summons 4 Beornings around him. Sometimes when you summon him, they all have no texture, so you can glitch the game with them, so be careful. You can then summon the Citadel, which you can only have one of on the map. But when you do have it, you can get 3 extra buildings around it, either a bastion to protect your archers, an archer tower, just get passive archer firing, or a catapult expansion for another catapult. This catapult has fire, by the way. And you can recruit all your basic dwarves from your faction regarding it. And if you use the horn on, well, the rallying call on a citadel, it gives you a larger area of effect for the horn effect, which is, if I didn't already say it, more attack and resistance to fear for all nearby. You can even say there, can target citadel for echo. Then we have the earthquake, which damage to all enemy buildings, not allied buildings. As you can see, it doesn't affect our buildings here. It also knocks back enemies, but not allies. And then it has 2 aftershocks, which does mostly just knocks back enemies. And then finally we have Final Stand. Just give your units massive amounts of armor. Probably best used with Erebor and Arkenguard spam because of the fact that it is a purely armor-based power. And probably is worse to the Iron Hills because they already are very heavily armored inclined and can reduce enemy damage, just don't have a lot of damage to hit back with. And overall, if you don't get how this faction works or how it plays, just play them. Just play Erebor and you'll see why people love this faction. And why I rate them the second easiest faction to play, the second easiest faction to learn, the second strongest faction behind Gondor. And honestly, if this bug does not get fixed, they might be the strongest. Because their weakness was always the fact that they didn't have a good way of constant economic value if you wanted to get everything. But also, unlike Gondor, you don't have a bunch of other buildings you have to choose from. You just go for either more help on your buildings or more discounts on your upgrades. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to choose. And then with Erebor in particular, you just do damage. You kill things potentially too quickly. But honestly, that is not a bad thing. That is more of more of a good thing than a bad thing. Hope you have all enjoyed the video. Hope you all learnt some things about the dwarves of Erebor and their insane capabilities. Amazing ring hero, amazing strengths, very hard to counter with most factions, but if you can, you're doing a good job. You're doing the right thing. I will see you all in the next one. Farewell.